Before packed stadiums, cameras, and million-dollar contracts, there was Pune. It was April 1973, and a considerable crowd had gathered at Pune's Nehru Stadium. The curious onlookers were trying to make sense of what was unfolding before them. Stretching across the ground was a huge banner that read National Ladies Cricket Championship. It was the first women's national championship being organized by the fledgling Women's Cricket Association of India. Just 2.5 teams turned up. During the presentation ceremony, Pramila Chavan, MP and WCAI president, handed the memento. Inscribed on it were the words she wrote, "The wings of ambition know no horizon." 5 decades later, history came calling again. But this time it was miles away from Pune. It was at Lord's, the cradle of cricket. It was the first time in its 142-year history that Lord's was hosting a women's test match. On the historic afternoon in London, the Indian women's cricket team beat England by staggering 270 runs. Hi, I'm Manya Gupta and welcome to ThePrint. Indian women's cricket has come a long way. The past few years have brought unprecedented crowds, media attention, and even a World Cup trophy for India. Yet women's cricket has never been new, only newly noticed. Women were playing cricket well before cable television entered Indian drawing rooms. It's just that between the black and white images, the unseen colors of patriarchy kept their story largely untold. The early 1970s was a decade of change. India was reinventing itself. But away from the headlines, a revolution was quietly taking shape in narrow lanes and dusty maidans across the country. Young girls with neatly braided plaits, scraped knees, and fire in their eyes began picking up a bat and a ball, which had remained a privilege reserved for the boys until then. Few noticed them, yet they were laying the foundations of a sport that would one day reach Lord's. It started from a house in South Bombay where one woman dared to imagine the unthinkable. Aloo Bamjee decided that the girls deserved a cricket club of their own. She called it the Albees. Among the girls who joined was a young Diana Edulji, as Karanya Keshav and Siddhanta Patnaik in The Fire Burns Blue wrote that Edulji had lost her 2 front teeth and top of her gum when playing on a matting wicket for the first time. But she kept at it. Edulji would later captain India and become one of the sport's defining figures, played the rest of her career wearing dentures. Aditya Bhushan writes in her story, Her Glory, that for Bamjee, discipline was non-negotiable. She expected hard work, practice, and her commitment didn't end with the boundary of the fields. She brought sandwiches, gloves, and bats for girls who couldn't afford them. During Mumbai's unforgiving monsoon, she turned her home into a practice pitch. Tough on the outside, yet a mother at heart, Bamjee never let a good day's effort go unrewarded. The prize, a bar of Cadbury chocolate and a dastarkhan of Parsi delicacies. The spark had been lit. Girls' Cricket Club began appearing across India. In the suburbs of Bombay itself, Albees found a competitor, the Indian Gymkhana. And with that, a friendly yet fierce cross-city rivalry emerged. The driving force behind Indian Gymkhana were 2 young entrepreneurs, Neeta Telang and Nutan Gavaskar, Sunil Gavaskar's sister. A little south in Pune, there was Narendra Nikam's Challenger Club camp. In Chennai, inspired after watching Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi and Pat Pocock in action, 3 spirited 14-year-olds, Fauzi Khalili, Sudha Shah and Susan Iticheria formed the Skylarks. Bangalore had its very own Falcon Sports Club. Further east, Kolkata's Kalighat Club ground became the cradle for women's cricket. Many of India's first women cricketers were former softball players. Back then, softball was the sport of choice for girls in schools and colleges. It was these softball players who eventually became the country's first generation of women cricketers. Yet despite the fire that burned in the hearts of many young girls, cricket remained little more than an after-school pursuit, localized, unorganized. Then came Mahendra Kumar Sharma. Sharma was already organizing girls' tournaments in softball and handball. During one such national meet where he had taken a team from Uttar Pradesh, his team of girls noticed a group of boys playing cricket. Curious, they picked up the bat themselves and loved it. Sharma had an idea. Back in Lucknow, he wasted no time. Aboard a rickshaw, a loudspeaker in his hand, and unwavering belief, Sharma set out through the winding lanes of the city. One message echoed trailing behind the rickshaw: "There will be cricket for girls, do come." The call worked, and over 200 curious spectators, mostly boys, gathered at the grounds of Queen's Anglo Sanskrit College. Many came expecting women to play in skirts. Encouraged by the response, Sharma established the Women's Cricket Association of India in Lucknow under the Societies Registration Act. Sharma became its secretary, while Begum Hamida Habibullah, parliamentarian and social worker, became its first president.
I think cricket is what it is today thanks to Mahendra Kumar Sharma. I mean, at that time, he was what in his 20s, and he had this vision that women will play cricket, and we used to call him Sharmaji. And all of us were looking forward to meeting him because everybody said, "Oh, he's such a handsome guy. He's like Shashi Kapoor types," and and all schoolgirls at that time, all big fan. We were like waiting to see him. And you won't believe, I mean, we were so naive. We didn't know that in UP there are a lot of Sharmajis. So while we were watching a game, somebody said Sharmaji, and then all of us turned around to see, and it was some funny looking guy with, pond tickling down his face. And we were so disappointed. He put us up at Clark's Award, and he didn't have money, but still he said that no, y'all should be y'all should get the best facilities. That's how he used to take care of us.
Shubhangi Kulkarni remembers Sharma much the same way. The former cricketer told The Print that he changed what was a hobby into a national sport. For a fledgling association, organizing tournaments after tournaments despite having little money was remarkable. She further said Sharma would go out of his way to publicize the game. He would type out reports himself and send someone to hand it over to the press. What had long been a gentleman's game was about to be written by women. With that, the stage was set for the first nationals to be held at Pune. Just 2.5 teams were in attendance: Bombay, Maharashtra, and half a team from Uttar Pradesh, which fell short of players borrowed from Bombay and Maharashtra. One day, 25 over games were organized, and Bombay won the finals, beating Maharashtra by 10 wickets. The Illustrated Weekly of India, in its 30th December 1973 issue, devoted a full page to women's cricket's baby steps from Albees to the first national championship in Pune. Titled The Fair Ladies of Cricket, it described the game as a novelty, inviting readers to see how our fair ladies are faring in a game that symbolizes all that is fair and sporting. Karuna Keshav and Siddhanta Patnaik wrote that Nutan Gavaskar would later recall that a lot of people showed up to see whether the girls wore skirts or dresses. Much to the crowd's disappointment, the women walked out in regular whites and trousers. While England persisted with the divided skirts until 1997, India chose the practicality of trousers from the very outset. In December that year, a second nationals would follow. This time it was held in Banaras with 8 teams participating. Defending champions Bombay were knocked out in the quarterfinals. Bombay was clearly not pleased, and they soon made their displeasure known. The morning of the final, in which Bengal defeated Karnataka by 70 runs, turned out to be a nightmare for the to-be champions. The Bengal team were extremely superstitious about its jersey. So when they woke up the next morning to find their carefully washed white splashed red with cough syrup, players were enraged. A trail of cough syrup drops led the search to the Tamil Nadu team's room. Sudha Shah told The Print that the next morning Bengal captain was outside their rooms banging on the door, cursing. The curses were idli, sambar and vada. So the mystery didn't last long. It was Bombay that had orchestrated the whole fiasco. There was a growing consensus that without international matches, the game would never reach its full potential. After WCI persuasion, it was in 1975 that an under 25 Australian entourage finally arrived in India. One task, however, remained: the selection of a formidable national team. To do that, the WCI organized the interzonal Rani Jhansi Trophy, the South Zone, featuring future stars Shantha Rangaswamy, Fauze Khalili, and Sudha Shah emerged victorious. Soon after, another hurdle emerged: who would captain India? Every state association wanted their own captains. The solution was in many ways quintessentially Indian: unity in diversity, rotate the captaincy. With the debate settled, India finally took the field against Australia. The 3-match series would end in a draw. The following January, India hosted New Zealand for 5 Test series. This time, however, Shantha Rangaswamy was made the sole captain for the entire series. In the fourth Test at Pune, Rangaswamy became the first Indian woman to score a Test century. The series ended 1-0 with New Zealand taking the trophy home. Despite those achievements Indian women's cricket had made in those two series, Rangaswamy's 627 runs and 14 wickets and Edulji's 39 wickets a few years later all went down the drain. With the merger of the International Women's Cricket Council and the International Cricket Council, India's test matches against Australia and New Zealand were retrospectively stripped of their official status. The West Indies tour in 1976, however, made things official. The six-test series ended in a 1-1 draw, yet it remained one of the most historic series in history of women's cricket in India. The fourth test at Patna proved especially memorable. It brought India its first ever official test victory. A huge crowd exceeding 40,000 turned up to celebrate the win. It was no small ordeal. They had broken the glass ceiling, challenging a society that had long told women what they can and cannot do. It was a quite joyful revolution, one that involved swinging a bat. More first soon followed. No sooner had the West Indies series ended than the team boarded a flight to New Zealand for India's first overseas tour. Then came 1978, and India was not just about to play its first Women's World Cup, it was about to host it, too, nearly a decade before the Men's Cup arrived on the Indian soil. For Mahendra Kumar Sharma, it was an opportunity too important to miss. A World Cup on home soil meant visibility for Indian players and legitimacy for the administrators. But hosting a World Cup required money, and there was very little of it. Sharma went above and beyond. He even sold his personal property in Lucknow and organized high-profile fundraising matches, roping in Bollywood actors like Vinod Khanna to raise funds. Yet, an event of this scale was never going to be without drama. From the outset, the tournament was marred by controversies and allegations of poor management. The WCI and Sharma, the man who nurtured it, found themselves under intense scrutiny. Amid all the pomp and publicity, the WCI had not cleared the players' pending dues, and Sharma's repeated assurances did little to ease their concerns. For the girls, enough was enough. Diana, the captain, and her teammates met the Bihar Cricket Association and made their positions clear. Unless their dues were clear, they would boycott the match in Patna. After hours of negotiations, it was finally decided that the cash collected from the ticket sale would go directly to the players. But the drama was far from over. In the middle of the match against the Aussies, Diana walked back to the dressing room. Only after being sure that the cash had arrived did she join her teammates back in the field. For Sharma, however, the episode left deep scars and he resigned. With that, 1978 was the end of Sharma's journey in women's cricket. For the WCI, the controversy of 1978 was just the beginning. In 1988, an Indian Express article highlighted WCI's financial woes, poor tournament administration, and questioned why its secretary, Ashutosh Sharma, had remained in office for over a dozen years. 5 years later, on 18 July 1993, Indian Express quoted Edulji blaming the infighting among the WCI officials for the sorry state of women's cricket in India. However, if Indian women's cricket survived the 1970s, it was because it found people who cared enough to keep it alive. Funds were scarce, tournaments were difficult to organize, but they refused to give up. The struggle was real. Players traveled in unreserved, third-class compartments, slept on train floors, and made do with whatever was available. Shantha Rangaswamy, in her paper Journey of Indian Women's Cricket from the 1970s, however, wrote, in retrospect, this was never looked upon as relevant because the passion to play overshadowed all these obstacles. Raising funds was their biggest challenge, and Mahendra Kumar Sharma tried to bring the WCI under BCCI's umbrella. But it wasn't until 30 years later that Sharma's dream would become reality. The 2005 Women's World Cup proved to be a turning point. Although India had lost the final, the tournament brought a great victory. Soon after, the WCI finally merged with the BCCI. At the heart of the merger was Shubhangi Kulkarni, then WCI secretary, and Sharad Pawar, then BCCI president. The merger gave women's cricket a new home, but not immediate attention. In conversation with ThePrint, Sharda Ugra, a sports journalist, said that what happened is what many describe as a lost generation. Between 2006 and 2013-14, women's cricket received little more than cursory attention from the BCCI.
I think chauvinism. I think, male chauvinism, because BCCI was dominated by men. There was hardly a woman or official from donkey. I mean, one of the big things which has happened in the last 7, 8, 9 years. Now, 2017, Diana Edulji became part of the cricket advisory committee. Which was unthinkable even 10 years before, even 10 years earlier. So just getting the BCCI to even listen to what they were asking for, demanding, saying just give us opportunities to play. So it took another 8, 10 years of constant lobbying and cajoling, and I would say even pleading, that finally the BCCI relented. I think that women's participation, and this is something which is my personal belief over the years, that you can't become a sporting nation if you keep half your population out of sports, which is the women.
Things began to shift only when the Supreme Court took interest in BCCI's functioning. From then on, Indian women's cricket finally gathered the momentum its pioneers had dreamed of. And in 2025, the country erupted in bloom. Tricolours fluttered across the stands, fireworks lit up the skies. And under Harmanpreet Kaur, India lifted the ICC Women's World Cup. But there was one more first left to right. 8 months later, on 13th July 2026, Harmanpreet led her team out at Lord's, the same ground whose 142-year history had until that morning never once included a women's test match. She was taken aback to learn that it had taken the sport this long to let women onto the pitch in whites. Thank you and keep watching The Print.